What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at DataDash, and today is May 18th of 2018. Well, folks, it's time for a daily update here on the DataDash channel, and today we have a lot of different things to discuss here on the update. First and foremost, as always, we'll be spending some time looking at market valuations as well as doing some technical analysis on the market leaders. But outside of this as well, we have some key things to discuss. The first thing we have to talk about is the well-known exchange CoinCheck, which recently got hacked back a few months ago, setting out plans to expand into the United States outside of its home country in Japan. Along with that as well, I have some cool things to share with you guys on Reddit. And the last thing we're going to be talking about is a potential contester to the well-known USD Tether. So we'll be talking about this player itself, where its current status is right now, and how it's going to be possibly listed on Binance over the next few days or weeks. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the video, guys. We've got a lot of cool things to talk about. The first thing we have to talk about, though, is not so cool and not so fun, and that is the current state of the market. So obviously the drop hasn't been that dramatic. You know, I was tweeting about it jokingly the other day and just saying how it was sad price action, but nonetheless, we're still holding around 8,000. This is again the question we're asking ourselves at the moment. We all have our eyes on Bitcoin. We're waiting to see where it goes so we can see guidance for altcoins. As we all know, it leads the market. And with this, we're really debating between those two key points at 8,000 and 9,000. I think someone jokingly was talking about they're going to be a hard time because, like, oh, you're saying it could go both ways. Well, I'm in what's known as a neutral zone, guys. We're not exactly in what I would say is a corrective territory to where we're going to see a crash all the way back down to around 6,800 or 7,000 just yet. But at the same time, we haven't signaled the confidence yet that we're going to rally back up towards 10,000. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on and how that works as a trader. Sometimes you enter what's known as neutral zones, zones where you're waiting for a decisive set of price action to move the market in one direction. So in that case, we'll talk a little bit about that later, but we can obviously see across the board outside of Huobi token and Binance coin. Interestingly enough, when these discounts are coming and people are stacking up on the coins that lead to more active trading, which tells me that people aren't really calling for a bear market, but nonetheless, we can see across the board here that obviously most things are in the red. So let's go ahead here, take a look at overall valuations. We haven't dropped to any dramatic valuation we haven't seen before. We're really trading around the same range we were at just a few days ago, back on May 12th. Again, had a little bit of a dip because Bitcoin had pushed the markets down for a short time being, but we've been able to hold at 8,000 and might possibly find support there. Again, we have to wait for a solidified close below 8,000, as we'll talk about later on, before I really turn bearish on the market. But at the moment, we can see here on the market dominance, we are getting very close back up to 38%. Again, that is the area where if Bitcoin dominance gets up to 38%, we could possibly see a continued correction. Again, we've been saying that for the past few days on the daily updates. And along with that as well, even though we keep talking about Bitcoin dominance as a potential fear factor for altcoins to continue correcting, Ethereum dominance continues to remain strong, continues on its steady uptrend, which again shows me that the risk-taking signals are still there in the market, meaning that we have a potential bull run coming. But it is clear and obvious to state that we've experienced a 20% correction of Bitcoin's price since back here on the 6th of May. So with this, we have to ask ourselves, what's the continued direction we're going? We've obviously seen a rollover here, a close below the 50-day moving average. In this case with Bitcoin, we're generally going to see if it can hold here at this key level of support around 8,000. We dipped a tad bit below it the other day, but have come back up to potentially close above that level and see if we can garner support here for the next few days or weeks. The fact of the matter is, guys, is that, again, as we talked about over the past few days, we're in what's known as a neutral zone as traders, or at least that's what I like to call it. In these kind of periods when you're within a given price range that doesn't show any decisive trend, I would say, you know, we have two key levels, a key level of resistance here at 9,000 and a key level of support here at 8,000. Until we take a decisive direction, whereas the price either continues to break down below 8,000, in that case signaling that we're probably going to come back down to the price range around 7,000 or 6,800 down to here. Either we get that or we're going to get a bounce off of that price range and break through 9,000. And it doesn't have to happen overnight. It might take a few days. It might take a few weeks. We got to be patient with it. But in this case, if we can get that and it gets above 9,000, I think you're going to have a continued breakout enough to where we can break past 10,000 and also get above the 200-day moving average and continue the rally. But that might take some time. We have to be careful because right now we have an issue that plays both ways that really keeps me from getting overly bearish in the market, but also overly bullish. And that is a lack of liquidity. If we take a look here on the past 4 hours here, we can see that for the most part liquidity is dying down the market. Actually, I think the best visualization would be taking it to the weekly, as we talked about in previous episodes. Liquidity in the market, volume, is just not here yet. It's trading a lot through altcoins, but we haven't gotten, for example, what we've talked about for the past few months on the channel is how Bitcoin is that entry of liquidity into cryptocurrencies. It's how new capital comes in, because when retail investors and institutions are buying Bitcoin, they eventually pour it into altcoins, but it is the first entry point for the most part, unless you're obviously buying Ethereum or Litecoin on to Coinbase or Bitcoin Cash. But in most cases, people enter it through Bitcoin. So in that case, we have to wait for that catalyst that's going to lead for this to possibly really break out and get some serious volume. And because of that, there is a decent chance that we could go back down to triple bottom down at around 6,800. I'm not going to panic if that's the case, but I know that I'm going to have some capital on side waiting if that does come to add down and average down on these lows. Again, we've held support there 2 times. It would be pretty hard for it to break below that. Who knows though? Tone Vase and others might be right. I know there's some bears in the market who have been calling for Bitcoin to go to 5K or something like that. Could very well happen. I don't think that's the case. I think we're going to possibly, at the worst case, come down and triple bottom down here. But we also still have a chance to hold here at 8,000 and continue. But it will be a matter if we can get some buy-side volume popping this up over the next day or so, because we're living on we're standing on very, very thin ice. All right. Let's go ahead and play through a few of these market leaders. Ethereum still looking to get past 8,500,000 Satoshis, but the trend is still looking nice. Nothing bearish right now until we see a rollover. I wouldn't get worried about Ethereum until it broke down below 8 million Satoshis. At the moment, still looking great, still continuing the uptrend towards 10 to 12 million Satoshis in my opinion. XRP, BTC, Ripple, getting rejected continuously at 85,000. This looks like it might come down to garner support again on the 200-day. We're very close to it. It's only a few thousand Satoshis away. We'll have to see if it can hold there, and if it breaks below here on 80,000, I don't think I'll make a trade on it. Bitcoin Cash, so take a look here, continuing the depletion again, guys. It's going steadfast towards those indicators, waiting to garner support at 14 million Satoshis, where the 200-day and 50-day are lining up quite nicely. Going on here to take a look at EOS. EOS itself continuing to roll over here again, guys. As much as there was a lot of FOMO, we were on the live stream just a few nights ago, and many people were watching on the hourly. I think we can go down here. Some people were seeing this, there's some people stacking up. And this is pretty common. People stack up more and more as the price gets lower, because you're gambling by waiting more and more and more as it goes low. But I don't think it's much of a gamble to wait a few more days in this case, guys. I haven't been stacking up dramatically on EOS just yet, because this is my buy zone. I'm being disciplined. But if I see it get close and we start to get, again, a pretty rapid turn up, I'm going to definitely probably pick some up, because I'm not going to get too picky with it. But I think you could easily get into this range. We're still a pretty good distance away from previous resistance, of a good 20,000 Satoshis. So because of that, and the 50-day still not making contact with it, and no massive amounts of volume really coming into the grand scheme of things, I'm going to remain patient on this one. Going on here, I forget, there was some cryptocurrency that people had requested I talk about, and I can't remember. No, not Dogecoin. What coin do I always forget to talk about? Oh, that's right, NEO. Dao Hongfei would want me to talk about this. Don't worry, Dao. I'm talking about NEO. Don't worry. I haven't been forgetting it. If I do, I didn't mean to. I just. All right, let's go ahead and talk about NEO. Anyways, guys, NEO. Look, here's the case with NEO right now. I'm gonna go ahead and pull it up on Bittrex here. The major thing that I want to talk about is that it's repeating price action history. I got a lot of requests in the previous video, because, as always, if I forget to talk about NEO, you guys call me out on it, and it's rightfully so. Rightfully so. NEO is an interesting player, and we need to keep an eye on it. But as we take a look here on NEO's price action, we can obviously see that it is going through its previous price patterns. Okay. Now, it might be a little bit different in the grand scheme of things, and we are working at different price levels, but this is repeating history very similarly. So we have the resistance at 1,400,000 Satoshis. We've seen it over here, we've seen it over here, and this came from an initial exponential uptrend, practically from the same base levels that it was beforehand. Now we've seen the initial decline as well as over here. What's nice, though, I will say in the positive sense for NEO, is that the base level of support from the initial downtrend is much, much higher. Back here, we saw it at around 500,000 Satoshis. It's now at 700,000 Satoshis. And then we had the initial rebound afterwards, and then the continued decline. And we're seeing that again and again, guys. It's repeating history, okay? I don't mean to be bearish on NEO. In fact, I'm actually quite excited about this because as the fundamentals and the ecosystem keep building around NEO, it has one of the most prominent ecosystems out there comparative to that of Ethereum or EOS. If this continues to develop as it is, as well as the decline in price action, I think this is coming up with a really, really solid opportunity. So where am I looking to get into it? I don't have any set price levels yet. We'll have to see where it builds support next. But I think this is going to probably collapse through 7 million Satoshis and continue lower. I know some people don't want to hear that, especially with all the negative price action recently. But as you all know, I definitely got a small position in NEO. I added a little bit because I like NEO personally. It's a good protocol, and I got it at a pretty decent discount compared to its highs. And I'm looking to average down and get an even bigger position as this continues to go down and provide a better level of support. So that's the general case of NEO. Let's hope Dao Hongfei was not in the room when I was talking negative about NEO. Anyways, going on towards a few other projects we're keeping an eye on. Icon looking like it wants to come back down and triple bottom down here at this same price level at 4,000 Satoshis and make contact with that 50-day again. If it breaks through the 50-day, that could be a bad case for Icon. But I think what it's looking for is to find support there. I think it will garner support there. And then after that, we will see it come back up to 5,000 Satoshis and hopefully break out with an altcoin cycle. But with Bitcoin being in a bearish case that it is, altcoins might need a few more down days, and Icon would not be an exception. Cardano right now, garnering support on that 200-day, but if it breaks below the 200-day, that's going to be a bad signal for Cardano. As much as I like the discount here, I think we might possibly, if we break below this, we could go down to lower levels and maybe, just maybe, test for support here at a previous level that we saw back here on 2,500 Satoshis. I would not like to see it break below the 200-day because if that's the case, well, I mean, it would be nice if you're looking to add on Cardano, but in this case, I don't have too much extra capital that I want to push into Cardano at this moment because I already have a pretty decent position in it. But we'll see. If it comes down, again, might look to see if I can add on it. Hopefully, it'll hold on that 200-day moving average and signal some strength, much like we're expecting in other protocols. So, taking a look at a few more players here, let's go ahead and take a look at Lumens, another player that I tend not to cover on here too much because I always forget. If we take a look here on Bittrex, garnering support on the 50-day moving average, but looking like it might have a chance to break down. And the only case I would say that this might break down is that the 200-day moving average is lining up very, very close to the support level around 3,000 Satoshis, and it's creeping up at a very slow rate. So we might see this break down and have a nice correction like we've seen in Ripple. But who knows? Again, I think the biggest thing that's a telltale sign that this has got some more room to go down is the head and shoulders that we're seeing here, obviously, on the daily. I mean, that's a pretty clear short-term head and shoulders. So in that case, if you could get this down at 3,000 Satoshis, it would be nice compared to buying it back when it was at 5,000 Satoshis. So in that case, I will keep an eye on it. Going on to take a look at a few more players here. Nulls going through the cup and handle, and in fact, getting a little bit of a rebound today. Not on too much volume. Again, it's an early day, but definitely nothing like what we saw back a few days ago. So we might have a few more days of correction. Again, I think this is coming down to 45,000 Satoshis. After that, we could really see this take off. Taking a look at a few more market momentum players to take a look at Wanchain and Ontology. Wanchain holding and garnering support on that 50-day. I think this might be possibly the furthest it's going to pull back. It's on that key support level back here. Same goes for Ontology in this case. Ontology is rolling over, looking like it wants to come down at 7,000 Satoshis and garner support on the 50-day. Again, we talked about this rolling over. It is continuing. It is the current momentum of altcoins, guys, and the chart obviously showed that this was a dead cat bounce and it needs to roll over and go lower. These ones were a little overextended, to be fair. So anyways, that's it for the TA side of things, guys. Let's go ahead and dive in through the news here. So, as we all know, CoinCheck, the exchange that is based in Japan that had one of the largest US dollar hacks at the current time of the hacking through the currency NEM, through having it on a hot wallet. Really stupid mistake, but we'll forgive them for that. Anyways, talking about CoinCheck, they have recently been acquired, as we talked about a few weeks ago, and are going through the process of getting outside of their home base in Japan. They understand that Japan is a good beacon for cryptocurrencies, and obviously not only speculation, but also for payments, as there's been some issues with the Japanese yen as a currency. But we've seen as well some expansive plans to get into the United States. So let's go ahead and dive into the quote here. We obviously know, again, as we talked about, there was a recent acquisition from Monex, which is a massive financial company in Japan. They went out saying with a quote, "Japan may seem like it's one step ahead in crypto, but in terms of deciding what is security or token and attracting institutional investors, the US and Europe are moving ahead." So this is one thing that I think people underestimate with the US. I usually go around talking about how the US is quite behind in the sense of physical adoption of cryptocurrencies. If you go to Japan, you can see thousands of stores actually accepting Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, other cryptocurrencies like Mona. You know, it's a little bit more adopted in the sense of actual using in retail adoption, in the sense of retail stores adopting it. But in the case of investing and speculating, the Western world has been catching up, especially with the censorship in China. And in the West, we've seen, not only multi-hundred million or billion-dollar companies like Coinbase and all these different wallets and payment solution companies like BitPay come out, but along with that as well, we have started to really have our regulatory environment set standards and definitions of what is a security, what is a utility, what legal framework do we have to operate under. And again, I know people have different opinions on this, but this is, on a fundamental sense, as someone who's traded in traditional markets, a positive to get this market merged over the long term, to bring investment in, because a lot of the big money will not come into this space and help develop the cryptocurrency environment unless we have this regulatory framework, because companies are scared that if they make the wrong move, they could get in a lot of trouble. Monex is bringing this up as a perfect example, a perfect real world case of how companies care about regulation. Again, it's just a part of the framework here. But as we continue to go down and everything, there's some positive news in regards to some details in regards to expansion, using some of the capital that they have at the current moment to move in the US. I think this is a good move because, again, as much as there has been a very, very good beacon of safety in regards to Japan, we've also had the Financial Service Agency have some off and on kind of traits in regards to exchanges like Binance, whether that's a one-time case with Binance or some issues with Binance specifically. That's something that's up for debate and something that we have to research a little bit deeper into. But for this case, I think it's good to expand into different environments, not to be an exchange regulated to one simple country, and to be in a broader sense of a global market in this case, because again, we're dealing with a global currency payment system, cryptocurrencies. So I think that's a good step. Good to see that they're expanding into the US, and let's see if they can revive from such a severe hack of the past. I think they're going to do well with the leadership that's coming from Monex. All right, got to share a few things that I found on Reddit. As much as I don't like to joke about the pump and dump nature of cryptocurrencies, we actually call it out here in the crypto channel, and I've told people to avidly avoid them because they can burn average investors. But the important thing is that sometimes you got to have a few laughs in this space, and someone has created a Flappy Bird clone. Well, not so much of an average generic clone. This is actually really, really creative, where they created a thing called Pumpy Coin, and you can select your favorite cryptocurrency and go through and try to prop up the price by landing a different little hoops in price, which will give you obviously gold coins and all these things where you can actually score a higher level of price, as well as unlock probably new currencies. So I think this is a really cool idea. I think the whole idea of it is funny because they nail on so many things in the crypto space, and the price dramatically crashing and dropping down is pretty funny. So definitely an interesting idea, beautiful art style. I love it. Definitely want to try it out if I get the chance. I'm assuming it's on the iOS store. So if you guys are looking for a little time killer and maybe something to get your head out of the gutter with all the recent price action, maybe this might be a good distraction. All right, going on here, another thing that I found on Reddit is something known as bit nodes. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on it. I just thought it was really aesthetically appealing and pretty cool to really think about. And this is a mapping of all the nodes. This isn't Lightning Network. This is a mapping of all the nodes on the Bitcoin network as of Friday, May 18th. It's an obviously updated updated website where you can get an updated framework of all the nodes in the network. So it's really, really beautiful here. And again, just kind of speaks towards the whole decentralized nature. I think it's, again, I don't want to overhype it, but I just thought it was really cool to share. And if you guys would like to check it out, you're free to do so. Going on here as well to talk about the last topic we're going to be talking about. Many people have heard about TrueUSD as a steady competitor with Tether, and there's been a recent announcement that Binance is going to delay the listing, but I want to spend some time to talk about why this delay is, but also what TrueUSD is and how it could possibly stand as a competitor towards Tether. So if you've been sticking around with the channel since back maybe in September, October, November, you all are very well aware of not only what Tether is, but a lot of the recent controversy with Tether and how there's been a recent subpoena issued on Tether Limited, the company that operates it. So let's go ahead and talk about what TUSD is and why Binance is has delayed listing the currency. So TUSD is much like Tether. It is supposedly a pegged one-to-one ratio of a physical dollar with a digital token, in this sense, a cryptocurrency, where you have supposedly a system where you can own one of these tokens knowing that there is a dollar in reserve somewhere in a bank account, somewhere there is money that is backing this up on the books, and that at any time we can interchange it. But that hasn't been the case with USD Tether. You can't really go about interchanging it 24/7. There's not a lot of KYC. There's not a lot of clear transparency in regards to what they have on the books. They haven't been audited yet, and because of that, there's been some genuine concerns, and has left room for a lot of competitors who can make the connections to the legal and regulatory environments, who can build frameworks that are trustworthy. Anyways, Binance has gone about launching TrueUSD for some time, and there was a recent turning point where they had to push it back a little bit, and this was due to the fact that there was a concern for liquidity at the moment. They just want to make sure that there's a certain set of liquidity, even though there's a popular demand for it, because the systems in place for TrueUSD are much better than that of Tether at the moment. They have decided to push it back a little bit more, and they will be launching it at a later date. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the differences between these two, because TrueUSD went through understanding the concerns for this. They want to be completely compliant with regulatory standards, as well as being transparent on what is in the books, because the whole system is much better than that of Tether, which is pretty much a huge trust factor on one centralized institution that has supposedly billions of dollars in reserves somewhere that have backed up the billions of Tether they've created, and people are speculating and trading with it on a daily basis. So I can tell you, I wouldn't feel careful, I wouldn't feel safe with Tether. I'd be very careful if I was using it. But in the case of TrueUSD or TUSD, I'd feel much, much safer, because as you go through here, you learn a lot about the different standards that they set in regards to making sure to provide transparency to its users, and also introducing new currency. So we'll go through these quotes. These really, really kind of nail a few different parts of what makes TrueUSD unique. So they say in the TrueUSD system, US dollars are held in bank accounts of multiple trust companies that have signed escrow agreements rather than a bank account controlled by a single company. The contents of said bank accounts are published every day and are subject to monthly audits. So you've already got the auditing process that Tether has yet to do. But not only that, we're also not putting our trust factor into one centralized company like Tether Limited. We're dealing with a multitude of trust companies that are going to continually vet and check to see if we actually have the reserves on tab, if we really have it there in regards to the amount of currency that's out in supply. So multiple trust factors coming in. This is much better than having a centralized entity. Going on to the next quote, if someone wants to obtain TrueUSD through the online application, so if they want to go about actually creating new TrueUSD, then they have to go through KYC and AML checks. And once that's complete, they can send USD, actual physical US dollars, to one of TrueUSD's trust company partners. Once the funds are verified by the trust company and obviously signed through the escrow system, an API will instruct TrueUSD smart contracts to issue tokens on a one-to-one ratio and to send them to the Ethereum address associated with the account on hand. So, if this isn't sounding like a much better system, guys, I don't know what they could do better than this, because we understand that with these kind of currency applications using pegged ratio currencies, we have to have some sort of central authoritator, because there's got to be something back behind it, and there needs to be, some kind of regulatory compliance or oversight to see if they actually have the funds. Again, we're backing up a physical good here. Well, not so much of a good, I would say, an actual currency. So I think this is a really, really fascinating system. And there was some recent spike as well. As we take a look here, it's still very early on in regards to it, and because of that there's little liquidity, but for some reason there was some huge prop up of volume and buying of TrueUSD. I don't really get the need for it because it's a stable currency that's going to come back eventually down to $1, so I don't really get that. But in this case, though, we can see that the market cap shows that there's only a few million in circulation. This is still very early on, but I recommend you guys go look into Trust Token, the parent organization around TrueUSD. It's very, very interesting to see this whole kind of framework of actually tokenizing things, and they're taking much more of a regulatory approach in the sense of actually having auditing processes and making sure that there's multiple trust parties, trusted factors coming in, rather than having one central authoritator running something like Tether, for example. So really interested in this, guys. I'd love to hear what you all think down below in the comments. Do you think that this is a better approach, things like TUSD are a better approach to that of Tether and other competitors? What do you guys think about all the other things we talked about in regards to Pumpy Coin, as well as the expansion of CoinCheck into the United States, and then also the current state of the markets? I'd like to hear what you all think down below in the comments. But until the next video, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Stay tuned.